Thank you for tuning in to Asia Inspires. I'm Asia, a family marriage therapist associate, here to inspire the pieces of your relationship to come together. I'm here with my dear friend Valeria Delgado, who is a licensed professional counselor associate, and we're going to be talking about domestic violence because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Valeria has been on Asia Inspires before, where we talked about why therapy is important for marginalized communities. So make sure you check out that video as well. Valeria, is there anything that you want to share about yourself?
Um, that's always a hard question.
Of course.
But I guess one of the things is I am bilingual. I'm Latina, and I love working with the Hispanic population, and that's what I'm here for. So,
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for coming back and for agreeing to do this a second time.
of course,
I look forward to having this conversation and learning more about what you do and ways that we can help people who are in domestic violence situations.
absolutely, and thank you for having me. Always
Of
enjoy being
course.
here.
Of course. So let's go ahead and jump right into the first question. And that is, how can therapy help survivors of domestic violence?
Yes, I guess this is a big one because a lot of people are very scared to go into therapy, especially if they have a history or they're currently in an abusive relationship. And I think it opens up, therapy opens up the space to voice out what's going on at home, what's going on with your partners. Um, Therapy provides the support that a lot of these individuals need, or at the beginning of their process of getting help, leaving these relationships, whatever the client may be needing. It's the beginning of finding resources and getting the help that they need.
Yeah, for sure. And just like you said, it can be difficult for anybody to start therapy. So especially for somebody who may have a distrust because they've been in an abusive situation. But we as therapists are here to help, here to provide support. As you mentioned, we can also help build self esteem because self
Mm-hmm.
esteem can be very low when you're leaving situations when you're a survivor. Um, Provide resources, other resources, whether it's legal issues. We're not necessarily helping with the legal issues, but we can help you find support for those legal issues, the legal matters. Help you find shelters, or
Mm-hmm.
pretty much whatever it is that that survivor may need. We're here to walk you through that process and to make sure that you're feeling heard.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the important things is also how therapy also recognizes the fact, the lived experience of the individual.
Mhm.
A lot of individuals don't really know that they might be in abusive relationships, not until someone points it out.
Yeah,
And that's where us therapists come in, and kind of pointing out the fact that abuse and everything that comes with abuse is not normal.
for sure. Yeah, so making sure that they understand the situation that they're in, and for those that are survivors, understanding that that situation is not normal, and helping them to recognize the red flags and things so that they are not going from one abusive situation to another.
Mm-hmm.
And also giving coping skills because there's still trauma that that person may be working through, so helping them learn to
Mm-hmm.
ground themselves and to do deep breathing, learning how to regulate emotions, learning how to communicate with other people, how they're feeling, and like I said, just recognizing the different situations that they have been in and how they can possibly avoid that in the future.
Mm-hmm. I think it's just important to also recognize the different types of abuse that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people kind of think about physical abuse when it comes to domestic violence, which is
Mm-hmm.
100% right. But there's also sexual abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse that need to be considered because some
Right.
people might not even know that they're experiencing domestic abuse if it's just emotional abuse or
Right.
financial abuse, when in reality it is. So
Right.
it's more than just physical.
Exactly. Not just thinking, oh, I don't have any bruises on me, or this person's not putting their hands on me. So I'm not in an abusive situation, but that's not always the case. Like you said,
Mhm.
there's different. types of abuse. And if you're watching this, make sure that you check out the links that are going to be provided in the description box, because I have talked about, in general, domestic violence, giving statistics, some other resources, as well as just giving a definition of what abuse is. So make sure you get that general understanding before you watch this or after you watch this. And moving on to the second question, let's talk about confidentiality for a second. How can therapy be confidential, especially for those who are currently in abusive situations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So confidentiality, it's always a touchy subject, especially when it comes to legal matters.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a legal dispute, if there's a divorce in process, or if there's, what's it called? Restraining orders or things like
Mm-hmm.
that. It makes therapy a little less confidential, um, because we're kind of bound to your safety, and we want to make sure that if we are required by law, if the law comes to us saying that we need to disclose some of your information, we want to make sure that we're disclosing just enough information to keep you safe and to help you get out of the situation that you're in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we always try to maintain confidentiality as much as possible, even when it comes to legal matters. It's just a little less confidential than what it would be if the law wasn't involved. At the end of the day, our priority is your safety, and
Yeah,
you want to make sure that you are safe. And I don't know about you, Asia, but I would do what I can within my ethical regulations to keep my clients safe. So,
for sure. And like you said, you as a client is our main priority. Your safety is the main priority. So making sure that children are safe. Of course, we are ethically
mm-hmm.
obligated to make reports, at least in the state of Texas, if a child is being harmed. But in a lot of situations as well, if a person does not want to report it, so if there's not a legal matter, but somebody is currently in a domestic violence situation, they don't want to make reports to police, then we don't have to make a report. It's really up to the person, as long as children are not
Mm-hmm.
being harmed. But then also, if you do want to report it, then we are here to support, to help walk you through that process. But much like you said, Valeria, it's the main goal is to keep that person safe. And so knowing what information to divulge, what information not to divulge to keep that person safe is can be difficult, but that is our number one priority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fine line.
It is. It is. It can be
Yeah.
difficult, but that's why we have supervisors, and that's why we have other people who are
Mm-hmm.
there to support us throughout the process as well.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to question number 3. How can therapy help children who have witnessed domestic violence in their homes?
Mm-hmm. Gosh, it's always hard when it comes to children
Yeah.
because their brain hasn't developed, and it's very experiencing or observing domestic abuse can alter their brain chemistry.
Hmm.
So therapy can help children just to process everything going in at home, to also educate the children that this is not normal.
Hmm.
Um, they have experienced trauma, so working through that trauma is crucial for children who have been impacted by domestic abuse,
For
either
sure.
them observing it or them actually being abused themselves. Um, I think also therapy can help maintain the children safe. Again, if we are seeing a child and we suspect some domestic abuse going on, of course, we would have to make the appropriate reports.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, safety is the main priority,
Hmm.
regardless of the client's age. But if we have a child, we would have to make those reports. Um, what else? I think there's a lot that could be done in regards to children. I don't know if you have anything else that comes up.
Yeah, the only other thing that I would add is just once again helping with coping skills, helping them to learn how to regulate their emotions, or like you said, understanding that this is not normal. What can you do when you get upset? I know that you see when dad gets upset or when mom gets upset, these are things that happen. But how can we be sure that you finding healthier ways to release your anger, release your sadness, or
Mm-hmm.
um, knowing that drug or alcohol abuse is something to take serious, and that's not something you should partake in even from a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Building self-esteem, because they may also feel like, well, if mom or dad is getting treated this way, then that's a reflection on how this person sees me or how the world sees me. Because like you said, children's brains are like sponges. They're absorbing everything that's around them, and they have a very selfish mindset. So they sometimes it's hard for them to understand that this is happening outside of me. It's not about me. So some of them
Mm-hmm.
may internalize that, oh, this is happening because of me, or because this is happening to a parent that I love, this is also going to happen to me, or this is the way that I'm supposed to react when I get angry, or, there's so many other things that they may think
Mm-hmm.
about. The good news is, if you are somebody who has witnessed this growing up, that the brain is pretty malleable. So being in therapy can help rewire some of those connections in your brain to help you to grow and to better understand where you should be. So you don't, if just because it's the way you grew up doesn't mean that it's the way you have to continue. So
Mm-hmm.
that's also the ways that therapy can help children, whether it's a child or an adolescent or maybe even adult who is not in an abusive situation, but they grew up in one and it has drastically affected them. Therapy is a great way for
Mm-hmm.
them to process that and for them to get an understanding of how they can move forward from it. What I don't want to say lessons that they can learn, but I mean there are lessons that you can learn on how to better regulate emotions,
Mm-hmm.
regulate
Yeah.
emotions as well as relationships.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of adult clients who a lot of their trauma comes from childhood,
Mm-hmm.
and it may be related to domestic abuse, it might be not, but there it comes to a point where the adult has to rewire their brain and
Yep.
break toxic patterns and healthy patterns. And it's hard. If it's hard for an adult, it's going to be hard for a child
Right. Yeah.
because the adult already has a developed brain. Imagine they've been using this coping skill for their entire life that kept them safe during their childhood, but it comes to a point where that coping mechanism, that coping skill is not keeping them safe anymore. It's becoming
Mm-hmm.
detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
So even for adults who experienced or observed domestic violence during the childhood can also be very hard. So I'm glad that you pointed that out.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to add as well, as a family marriage therapist associate, I've seen clients who are not in abusive situations, but they did grow up in those situations and it caused them to distrust their partner. They may have a great partner who's supportive, who's, everything that you could want in a relationship, but they still have like a wall up because you're going to hurt me because this is what I've seen with my grandparents, this is what I've seen with my parents, aunts, uncles, whatever. And so it's a feeling of, I'm just waiting on you to show your real self. And they may be together for years. And it's still like, no, even though we've known each other for 5 years, I'm still just waiting on you to do the things that my dad did to my mom did to my dad, like I said, grandparents or whatever. So therapy can help with all of that.
Yeah. And sometimes it's important to help the kids who have observed or have experienced domestic abuse, domestic violence, because we've seen it. It affects the adult person, and it interferes with their relationships, either romantic or relationships at work or friendships. And the sooner we get to treat an individual who has been a victim, or as I'll rephrase, a survivor,
Mm-hmm.
um, the better. Because again, we want to make sure that they can have a successful life, not meaning that they will not get triggered, but that they have these skills that they need to be able to manage those triggers and
Mm-hmm.
um, have less complications in the
Mm-hmm.
future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With everything, because it can affect you in all areas of your life, not just
Mm-hmm.
romantic relationships, friendships, work relationships, all of it. Your self
Yeah,
esteem, all of that.
yeah.
The last question for today is just, can we talk a little bit about what safety planning looks like for therapists and clients who may be currently in a domestic violence situation, and are maybe not necessarily trying to get out right away.
Yeah, I think resources.
Mhm.
Bombarding clients with resources is the key. I use the word bombarding, but it's not like I'm throwing a bunch of resources, but it is. Sometimes clients need the resources. They don't have the
Yeah,
resources that they would need to ask for help.
yeah,
And again, they might not be ready to report. They might not be ready to leave that situation, but who knows? Maybe in a month, next week, maybe tomorrow, they're going to be like, I'm done.
yeah,
So it's important to prevention, I would say. Providing the resources as a means for prevention, as a means for the client to potentially use in the future. If the client doesn't use them in the future, well, that's fine. But you didn't, it's not like it's not lost work,
right,
because
right.
having these resources can not only help an individual, but it might also help the entire family system
Hmm.
or a neighbor or a friend.
Hmm.
Um, so that would be one part of safety planning. Two is actually creating a safety plan. What can you do when situations are heated? What can you do when you see the trigger signs, the trigger warnings? Who can you call? Who can you go to? Who do you trust where you can speak to them about this information? Like, making sure that you have a plan for whenever you might have to escape or you have to leave or who you might call for help. Um, Again, it's all about trying to prevent and reduce the stress if it were to happen in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Safety planning is all in the name. It's planning to make sure that you are safe in the situation, whether you are a teen or an adult, or even somebody who is considered elderly. Just making sure that you are safe. And in a previous video, I talked about how it takes on average a person 8 times to leave and come back before they leave for good. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important for us to make sure that safety planning is in place. And also, I mentioned before that leaving a situation is the most dangerous time for a person, because that's when the perpetrator is feeling threatened and they may lash out even more. And that's when some people have been murdered from trying to
Mm-hmm.
escape the situation. So we don't necessarily encourage people to, oh, you just need to leave the situation, because it is dangerous. And we understand
Mm-hmm.
from research that it takes a person on average 8 times. That means it could take 9, 10, 20. It can mean it takes 2 times, but from some statistics, it says it's on average 8 times. So making sure that that person, while you're in the situation, if you're not planning on leaving right now, while you're in the situation, what can you do to ensure your safety? What can you do to ensure the safety
Mm-hmm.
of your children, of pets, of everybody in the household who may be affected by this, whether it's physical safety, emotional safety, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's
Yeah.
just go ahead and get it. Or was there anything else that you want to add before we?
No, I just completely agree with you. So,
Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the resources. So I have a few resources, and then, of course, if there's any resources that you want to share, the hotline.org is great. They have some ways that you can find legal information. They have safety planning on there. Of course, you can reach out to somebody via the hotline. NCADV.org. Um, Oh, I forgot what it stands for. I think it's the National Council Against Domestic Violence. I think that's what it is. .org. I apologize if that's not what it is. But additionally, domesticviolence.org. You can also reach out at 1-800-799-7233, which 7233 is safe. So it's 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233. Or you can text the word START to 88788. And these resources are not just for women. I know we often talk about domestic violence against women, but there are men who are also being abused, in whether
mm-hmm.
it's financially, mentally, or emotionally, physically, whatever case. And so these resources are also for those who are identified as males. Are there any other resources that you can think of?
I not specific resources as of right now, but I do have, and I'll send these to you. It's the cycle of abuse. I use this with a lot of my
Mhm.
clients to educate them on abusive relationships and how the pattern works. So I'll send that to you. Maybe you can add it there as like
For
some
sure.
psychoeducation. And I also have a video that also demonstrates the cycle of abuse that I also use with a lot of my clients. I think as I said earlier, a lot of people don't really recognize that they're in this pattern or that they might be in an abusive relationship. Um, and so sometimes we need to educate ourselves a little bit. So I'll
Mhm.
just send those over to you and you can add them.
Okay, thank you. I'll be sure to put them in the description box. And of course, you may be watching this and like, well, I'm not in this situation, but you may know somebody who is, or you might not know that that person is because sometimes it's the couple who looks like they're the happiest in public. They're holding hands, they can't leave each other's side, they're kissing and everything. But then behind closed doors, the person is being emotionally abusive towards the other or being physically abusive. So just spreading knowledge and awareness and just having a conversation, especially with teens as they get into dating. What is healthy dating?
Mm-hmm.
What isn't healthy dating? I believe April is Teen Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but don't just wait until April to start talking to your teens about what healthy relationships look like because you see it on TV. They may have a positive representation at home of what a healthy relationship looks like, but TV and media, movies, songs, different TV shows or books or whatever
Mm-hmm.
may show them something completely different. And teens are easily influenced. And sometimes they don't
Mm-hmm.
think that parents know what they're talking about. And they think that the media has more knowledge than their parents. So that's why it's important for you to still continue to talk to them and let them know that you are there. Here are some resources for you, even as a teen.
Mm-hmm. Prevention is key.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that's all that we have for today. Of course, we're both hoping that you're taking care of yourself, that you're having conversations with people around you, whether they're older or younger than you, coworkers, friends, everybody, and that you're implementing healthy relationships. If you are somebody who needs to learn how to regulate your emotions or needs help understanding whether you are in a domestic violence situation or if you feel like you could potentially even be the perpetrator, please reach out to a therapist. That's what therapy is for. You can go to Psychology Today um, and find a therapist near you, whether virtually or in person. But until next time, go out and make sure that you are continuing to support others and take care of yourself.